Imagine someone offers you a glass of poison. You have two choices: accept the glass, drink it, and die in agony, or simply refuse the offer and leave the poison in the hands of the one who brought it. It seems like an obvious choice in the physical world, but in the emotional world, we drink the poison every single day. When someone acts wrongly, lies, betrays, or disappoints us, we swallow the pain, allowing another person's rotten attitude to course through our veins and destroy our peace. The suffering you feel from the actions of others is not a law of physics. It is an unconscious choice. You have been trained to believe that if someone hurts you, you must bleed. But what if I told you it is possible to develop skin so thick that the malice of others simply slides off? Real emotional freedom is reaching the point where the other person's wrong behavior is exclusively their problem, not a sentence of sadness for you. Today, we are going to deactivate the mechanism that links the attitudes of others to your nervous system. We will use the ancient wisdom of Stoicism to build a sanitary barrier in your mind, ensuring that the filth of others never again contaminates your inner sanctuary. If you want to stop being punished for the sins of others, your training begins now. 1. The anatomy of offense. The first brutal truth you need to swallow is that no one has the power to hurt you emotionally without your consent. The behavior of another is just an external event, neutral like rain or wind. Suffering does not come from the act itself, but from a story you tell yourself about that act. When someone insults you or makes a mistake against you, the pain arises from the judgment. This is unfair. I didn't deserve this. He disrespected me. If you remove the judgment, all that remains is the sound of words or the sight of an action, devoid of a stinger. Imagine a rock being cursed at. Does it get offended? Does it suffer? No, because it lacks the capacity to interpret that as an attack. Stoicism invites us to be like that rock in the face of offenses. Epictetus, the great slave philosopher, said, "It is not things that disturb us, but our opinion of them." The other person's mistake belongs to the other person. When you suffer for it, you're stealing their responsibility and transforming it into pain for yourself. It is a theft that only harms the thief. Think about the last time someone disappointed you. If you analyze it coldly, you will see that the pain came from your resistance to reality. You wanted the past to be different, but the act has already happened. Suffering for something that is already a done deed is fighting against reality, and reality always wins. The only way to win is not to enter the ring. By separating fact from interpretation, you create a space of freedom. In that space, you can look at the wrong attitude and say, "This is a lot about his character and nothing about my value." The offense loses its strength when it finds no inflated ego to strike. If you want to start practicing this immunity today, stop adding adjectives to facts. Stick with what happened, not with what you feel about what happened. 2. The invisible puppeteer. When you allow your mood to fluctuate based on what others do, you become a puppet. The other pulls the string of rudeness, and you dance the dance of anger. He pulls the string of indifference, and you dance the dance of sadness. Ask yourself, who is the master of your life? Is it you, or is it any unbalanced person who crosses your path and decides to test your patience? Living in reaction to the wrong attitudes of others is the most degrading form of slavery. You hand over the remote control of your emotions to people whom, often, you do not even respect. It is irrational. You wouldn't hand your car keys or bank password to an incompetent stranger, yet you hand over the key to your mental peace without a second thought. Emotional freedom requires you to cut these strings. Marcus Aurelius, ruling the world under immense pressure, reminded himself, "Your mind will be like its habitual thoughts, for the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If you spend the day thinking about the other's mistake, your soul gets dyed with the color of that mistake. You become a reflection of someone else's ugliness. To regain control, you must decide that your internal state is an impenetrable fortress where only those with an invitation can enter. The toxic behavior of the other is bait. If you bite the bait by reacting with suffering, you have been caught. The secret is to look at the bait, recognize it as a trap, and keep swimming. Indifference is the scissors that cut the puppeteer's strings. When you don't react, The manipulator or the offender loses power. He is left pulling strings that are no longer connected to anything. Reclaim your sovereignty. Decide that, from today on, no one has permission to dictate how you feel except yourself. 3. The mathematics of disappointment. We suffer because we are terrible mathematicians of human nature. We live with a statistically impossible expectation that people will always be fair, grateful, and correct. When someone acts wrongly, we are shocked, as if it were an anomaly. But history and experience show that error, selfishness, and betrayal are constants in the human equation. Expecting a flawed human being to act like a perfect angel is making the bed for disappointment to lie in. Imagine you plant a fig tree. Would you be furious if it bore figs? No, because that is its nature. Now, imagine you live with a narcissistic or immature person. Why do you suffer when they act with narcissism or immaturity? It is their nature bearing fruit. The suffering comes from the shock, the surprise. How could he do this to me? The Stoic answer is, he did it because he is who he is, and because you expected him to be who he is not. Seneca said that the wise man is never caught by surprise. He looks at humanity with brutal realism. He knows that ingratitude exists, that lies exist. When he encounters them, he thinks, here is another example of what I knew existed. By removing the element of surprise, you remove the trauma. The wrong behavior becomes just data, information about who the other person is, and not a knife in your chest. This does not mean being cynical or trusting no one, but it means adjusting your expectations to reality. Stop projecting your goodness onto others. Accept people as they are, with all their flaws, and you will never be caught off guard again. Acceptance of reality is the antidote to frustration. If you're tired of being disappointed, stop expecting pears from an elm tree. Observe the fruit people bear and believe them the first time. 4. The inviolable border. The fundamental error that makes us suffer is the confusion of territories. We believe we are all mixed in a great emotional soup, where what happens to you affects me directly. Stoicism draws a hard line in the sand, the dichotomy of control. On one side of the line is what is yours, your thoughts, your actions, your character. On the other side is the rest of the universe, including the actions of all other people. When someone makes a mistake, that mistake happens in their territory. If he lies, the stain is on his honor. If he betrays, the flaw is in his integrity. By suffering for it, you're crossing the border and importing toxic waste that was not produced in your factory. You are assuming spiritual responsibility for a crime you did not commit. Why would you do that? Why carry the weight of someone else's conscience? Emotional freedom is the act of returning the baggage. When you see someone acting wrongly, visually imagine that action is a heavy, dirty object in the person's hands. Tell yourself, this is his. You'll have to carry this, sleep with this, and wake up with this. I will not touch this. Keep your hands clean and your border guarded. Your only duty is to keep your own virtue intact. If the world around you is falling into moral decay, that is tragic, but it should not bring down your rectitude. Be like a lighthouse on a stormy coast. The waves crash, darkness surrounds, but the lighthouse's light remains steady, unaffected by the chaos of the waters. By establishing this inviolable border, you discover a peace that does not depend on circumstances. You realize you can love people and live with them without becoming a hostage to their wrong choices. You are the emperor of your own mind. Close the gates to invaders. 5. The diagnosis of the invisible disease. Anger is the response of someone who feels threatened. Pity is the response of someone who feels superior. When someone acts wrongly toward you, whether by lying, betraying, or attacking, your animal instinct screams for revenge. But Stoic reason invites us to make a clinical diagnosis. Happy, fulfilled, and well-adjusted people do not waste time trying to destroy the lives of others. Malice is always a symptom of internal misery. Those who hurt others do so because they are overflowing with pain, fear, or profound confusion about how to live. Imagine you are in a psychiatric hospital and a patient having an episode screams insults at you. Would you take it personally? Would you stay up all night crying? Of course not. You would look at them with detachment and compassion, understanding that it is not about you, but about their illness. The person who made you suffer is, spiritually speaking, that patient. They carry invisible wounds, unhealed traumas, and a distorted worldview that compels them to act destructively. Socrates, the father of Western philosophy, argued that no one does evil voluntarily. He meant that every wrongdoer acts in pursuit of something they think is good for themselves, pleasure, power, relief, but they are ignorant of the true nature of the good. They're like a blind person groping in the dark and breaking vases along the way. By viewing the offender as someone worthy of pity for their moral blindness, rather than as a powerful monster, you deactivate the trigger of hurt. It is impossible to hate someone you consider inferior in wisdom. This shift in perspective is the ultimate armor. You cease to be the victim of an attack and become the observer of someone else's tragedy. You understand that their punishment is simply being who they are, trapped in their own chaotic mind. You, on the other hand, are free to move on. If you want to develop this superior vision and stop lowering yourself to the level of those who hurt you, leave a like now. It shows you have chosen wisdom over hate. 6. The revenge of the clean mirror. Often, we suffer because the ego demands reparation. We want the other person to pay, to feel what we felt. But Stoicism offers us a form of revenge that is much more lethal and elegant. The absolute refusal to become like the aggressor. Marcus Aurelius wrote one of the most powerful sentences in history about this. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When you suffer, cry, and plot payback, you are allowing the toxic person to mold your character. You are becoming bitter, suspicious, and angry because of them. In other words, they won. They managed to transform you into a replica of their ugliness. The true victory is keeping your virtue untouched, regardless of the filth thrown at you. It is being honest in the face of the liar, calm in the face of the aggressive, and fair in the face of the traitor. Imagine your soul is a polished mirror. The other person's malice is a beam of ugly light. If the mirror is clean, it merely reflects the ugliness back to the source without absorbing anything. The aggressor is forced to face their own image reflected in your stoic indifference. There is nothing more devastating to someone who wants to hurt you than realizing you remain unshakable, happy, and whole. Your happiness is the greatest insult to those who wanted your misery. By focusing on your own excellence, you make the other person's mistake irrelevant. You don't have time to suffer because you're too busy being a better person than they will ever be. You won not because you destroyed the other, but because you protected yourself. If you are determined to be unbreakable and not allow anyone to change who you are, comment below, I am my own master. 7. The opportunity cost of the soul. Suffering is an incredibly expensive tax you pay with the only currency that does not renew, your time alive. Every hour you spend ruminating on a betrayal, every sleepless night thinking about someone else's injustice, is a piece of your existence thrown into the trash, never to return. Do you really think the person who acted wrongly deserves, in addition to the damage they already caused, the gift of your days and your mental health? Seneca, in his treatise on the shortness of life, warned us about how miserly we are with our money, yet prodigal with our time. We protect our bank accounts, but we let anyone walk in and steal our peace and our hours. Suffering for the attitudes of others is a tragic waste of potential. While you are stuck in the past, reliving the pain, the present is slipping away, and the future is being neglected. Death is the great equalizer. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. In the face of life's finiteness, wasting energy on the moral failings of others seems ridiculous. You have a mission, you have people to love, you have a legacy to build. The person who erred is just a distraction on your path. Do not stop your journey to kick stones. When sadness knocks, do the math. How much does this suffering cost? Is it worth paying this price because of that person? The answer will always be no. This cold logic helps you raise your head, shake off the dust, and get back to the work of living. Indifference is not coldness. It is smart economy of life. Share this video with that friend who is stuck in the past and urgently needs to wake up to life. Help them stop wasting their precious time. 8. The radical acceptance of nature. Finally, to never suffer again, you must make peace with reality. There is an ancient fable about the scorpion and the frog. The scorpion asks for a ride across the river and promises not to sting the frog. Halfway across, he stings. When the frog asks why, since both will die, the scorpion replies, "It is my nature." Understanding this is the key to freedom. People who act wrongly do not do so to persecute you specifically. They do so because it is their nature at that moment. Expecting the scorpion not to sting is naivety. Suffering when he stings is denying reality. Stoicism calls this a more fatty, loving fate, including the difficult parts. Accepting that betrayal, lies, and error are part of the catalog of human behaviors removes the shock from the equation. You stop fighting the fact that fire burns. You just learn not to put your hand in the fire. When you accept people as they are, you lose the hope of changing them, but you gain the peace of not depending on them. You look at the wrong attitude and say, of course, this is what was to be expected. Without surprise, there's no trauma. You become fluid like water, flowing around the rock without getting hurt. The rock stays there, still and hard, but the water follows its course to the ocean free. This acceptance is not passivity, it is clarity. It is knowing where you step. It is knowing who deserves your trust and who deserves only your polite distance. By seeing reality without the rose-colored glasses of illusion, you will never again be wounded by the truth. If you want to keep receiving these daily pills of mental strength and become immune to the chaos of the world, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications right now. Your training cannot stop. Today, we built your inner fortress against the wrongdoings of others. The anatomy of offense. Suffering comes from your judgment, not the fact. The invisible puppeteer. Cut the strings and stop reacting to those who don't deserve it. The mathematics of disappointment. Zero out expectations to eliminate surprise. The inviolable border. Return the responsibility for the mistake to the one who made it. The diagnosis of the invisible disease. Have pity, not anger, for those who are emotionally sick. The revenge of the clean mirror. Win by keeping your virtue intact and reflecting ugliness back. The opportunity cost of the soul. Do not waste your finite time suffering for those who are worthless. The radical acceptance of nature. Understand that the scorpion stings and keep moving. Emotional freedom is not a place where no one hurts you. It is a mental state where no one can hurt you because you do not give anyone that permission. The keys to your peace are in your pocket. Do not hand them over, ever. If this content helped you break free today, leave your like and I'll see you in the next video. Your mind is your empire.